standout athlete with an impressive track record, both on and off the field. Jacob is a 12-time Kentucky State champion, testament to his early dominance in the sport. He continues his stellar career at the University of Kentucky, where he became a 3-time SEC champion, a 3-time All-American. His transition to professional running has been marked by remarkable achievements, including competing in the 2021 Olympic Trials 10K, securing a runner-up position in the 2022 U.S. Marathon Championships, and clinching the 2023 U.S. Half Marathon Championship title. Currently, Jacob is residing in Flagstaff, Arizona. Jacob runs professionally for Under Armour Dark Skies distance team and has founded Thompson Training, where he coaches over 200 athletes across the U.S. His PRs are equally impressive, boasting times like a 3:57 mile, a 13:28 5K, and a 2:11 marathon. Jacob's dedication to the sport and his contributions to the running community, including operating the Bluegrass Running Camp, make him a true inspiration. Jacob, welcome to Airey Bros Radio. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it is an honor and a pleasure to talk with you. And so we always like to present a little bit of a through line with our guests, how we came on our radar. And we are friends with Coach Bradley Souter down at the University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky. And one of the things that's been reoccurring with a lot of our running guests lately is the topic of double threshold training. And so we were discussing that with Coach Souter, and he mentioned you when we were talking about lactate testing. Your name came up, and he recommended that we dig into you, look into you, and see if we could get you on to have a conversation. So that's our little through line with you. So we want to definitely talk about your coaching, but knowing your professional career and your running career, we'll probably get into that as well. And Jimmy and I are traveling men. We're a bit of nomads, so we'll probably even pick your brain a little bit about Flagstaff, although you probably don't want too many more people moving there at this point.
I just bought a house, so yeah, now I'm
Congratulations.
now I'm all protective. Call myself a
Right?
local now, I guess.
Okay, and I think you recently got engaged. Is that true?
Yes, yeah. So closed on a house the last week of April. Got engaged first week of May. So both in the last 6 weeks here.
A Kentucky Derby weekend, was it?
Yeah, Derby morning actually.
All right, on. Well, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
So Jacob, we Jimmy and I have our own little background stories of how we got into running. Our parents were both runners, and I was tricked into running the local Rotary 5 mile race when I was 5 in order to win a fish tank. So if you don't mind, maybe I know you got a fairly early start in running. Give us a little bit about your background and how you got into running.
Yeah, I started competing in cross country and track when I was in fourth grade, so very early. I would say I didn't really take it serious or even enjoy it in the slightest until probably eighth grade, freshman year of high school. Never won a race until eighth grade, which the races in middle school were a lot easier than the races in high school. So it's kind of funny how that worked. But yeah, I played baseball, basketball, just about anything I could get my hands on through middle school. And then I guess the way I got into running is that I wanted to play football in the fall, and I was a little bit of an aggressive kid with a little bit of a hothead, and mom was like, "No, you don't need to be playing football." So cross country it was, and I was kind of forced into cross country. Both of my uncles ran, were all state guys in high school. One of my uncles went on to run in college, and so it was kind of like in the family a little bit, but yeah, I think we kind of established it now throughout the whole family. But yeah, I was kind of pushed into it at a young age, and then yeah, like I said, didn't enjoy it until several years down the road.
That's probably the same for both Jimmy and I. We were maybe pushed into it. I used to tag along to a lot of the road races that my parents would run, do the 1 mile fun run, and Jimmy kind of piggybacked off of that 11 years later and started jumping in on the races that I was running. And probably similar to you, it wasn't until that first bit of success where you actually get that buy-in and you start to enjoy the process of running. I think maybe races are one thing, but the process and the journey of training is that buy-in comes when you have that first bit of success. Was that similar?
Yeah, so I guess the first kind of like little story that like resonates with that is when I was in eighth grade, I was really trying to break a 5 minute mile and didn't know anything about training really. I ran 2 or 3 days a week and played hours of baseball really on top of that. But yeah, I would just go to the track and I would, miles, 4 laps around the track. So I would do 4x400 basically as hard as I could, walk a lap in between, and then I'd show up to a race on the weekends and go try to break 5. And I basically did that. Like I ran 4:59 and by the end of the year, and I guess it worked. I think my training has evolved a little bit since then, but yeah, I wasn't doing easy runs. If I was running, I was going to do 4x400 as hard as I could, would walk as long as I needed between, and that was kind of, I guess, the first taste of like, oh, okay, if I can do this workout, I can go break 5 minutes in the mile, and you kind of start putting the pieces together of how training actually works.
So you speak of running that 4:59 in eighth grade. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you run a 4:20 mile your freshman year?
Yeah, I had quite a big jump from eighth grade to freshman year. Yes.
Yeah, so you make that jump, maybe kind of go into a little bit of how that happened and also what your mindset was being a freshman in high school running a 4:20. Did you think that, and you made that big jump, so it was like, oh, I'm the next Alan Webb, I'm going to break a 4-minute mile. What was your mindset as a freshman?
Yeah, so I guess early on in my freshman year, I got really lucky where I had a couple really good teammates on my high school team who were better than me. They're juniors and seniors. So I kind of just started following them around. If they were going, I would never gone on like a 4 mile run even, but if they were going for an 8 mile run, I was going for an 8 mile run. Like I just started basically tagging on to everything they were doing. And by the end of that year, I think it helped me that I was in a smaller school division. I went to a really small school in Louisville, Kentucky, and we were in the single A division. And I was able to compete at the front of a lot of these races. And I think I'm very, very competitive and driven that way. So I think once I started seeing like, oh, I'm not buried in 50th place. Like I can be up front and compete with these guys. Like that's kind of like what lit it for me. Just being as competitive as I am. And yeah, by the end of that year, I got third at the cross country single A state meet. And then I started working with a coach and doing like some different type of workouts, a different type of training that winter. And then, yeah, basically my first mile that track season, I think I ran somewhere in the 4:30s, like 4:36, and then just kind of worked down to 4:20 throughout that season. So yeah, it was definitely a big jump.
What did you PR at the end of your high school career?
I ran 4:06 as a senior.
Was there any adversity there? Was there any kind of stalling out? Were you having trouble that you weren't making those big jumps, or were you making incremental jumps all?
It was pretty incremental where I PR'd every year. I'll say sophomore year, I only ran 4:18. But my coach that I worked with basically from halfway through my freshman year all the way until I went to college, he basically said, I don't like sophomore year for us is like all about having you ready to go junior year. So if you look at like high school recruiting, your junior year is what like really, really matters. People don't really get recruited off of what they do as freshmen and sophomores. They kind of want to see what you're doing junior year. And then by senior year, especially track season, hopefully you're already committed somewhere. So senior year is almost a little bit like too late. So like if there's a year to shine, it's your like junior track season. So he kind of like put that in my mind very early. He's like, I want you to get a taste of success as a freshman, sophomore year. Sure, I want you to run fast, but like I'm all about getting you ready for junior year. So like we're not pulling back. We're going to basically lay all the blocks and training that we need to. So you might not run fast right now, but next year you will. So only seeing a 2-second jump as a sophomore, I was kind of like, oh no, like what am I doing wrong? But then come junior year, I ran 4:10, and then senior year I ran 4:06. So it was nice to kind of see you're going somewhere every year. And also, like a 2 mile, 800, 5K, those times are all kind of coming down with that as well.
So Jacob, you're originally from Louisville, you mentioned, and now you mentioned you just bought a house in Flagstaff. Interesting. On the other end of that, there was a gentleman who was living in Flagstaff and coaching in Flagstaff for a very long time and then made his way to Louisville, Kentucky. Did you ever cross paths with Coach Mann, and was there ever a thought of going to Louisville?
So Coach Mann was at Louisville when I was a senior in high school, and they came on like a house visit and stuff. But at the time, I really wanted to get out of state. Actually, I started off at NC State for 2 years and then transferred back to Kentucky. So I've talked to Coach Mann. I think he's obviously a great coach, has a very storied career, but I wouldn't say I ever seriously considered going to Louisville. I grew up 10 minutes down the road, and yeah, I just didn't think it'd be like a good fit for me at that time.
Yeah, I think that's good. I always encourage athletes to spread their wings a little bit, and you can always come back to your bubble if you appreciate and enjoy your bubble, but it's always good to get out and get some worldly experience. So if there are opportunities that present themselves, especially when people are going to help fund that journey, by all means, go ahead and take that and spread your wings. And if you want, you can come back home whenever you want.
Yeah, that's pretty. Everywhere I took an official visit to or seriously considered going was quite far away. So that's something I definitely did.
Yeah.
How do you like Flagstaff? Obviously, you bought a house, so you must like it a lot. But Rich and I have our eyes on Arizona. We were in Colorado for a minute, and we thought the next move was going to be Arizona, or at least I did. And then we're in the South right now. But everyone we talked about Arizona is like, you got to get out of here for like 4 months. It's way too hot. I know you're a little bit on the northern end of Arizona, but how's it treating you? How are you dealing with the heat?
So yeah, in Flagstaff, we're at 7,000 feet. So like if you fly into Phoenix, you basically just drive 2 hours up and then you hit Flagstaff. So the heat honestly is not bad. It'll still get hot, low 90s, high 80s. But it's nothing like Phoenix where you're getting those 110, 115 degree days. And then I would say it's almost the summer and the fall is like the nicest part because then we get a ton of snow through the winter, and then you get windy season on the mountain kind of in the spring. So yeah, I actually enjoyed being outside the most in the summer and the fall. Those are kind of like the pristine months in Flagstaff, I would say.
Now, everyone says, "Oh, it's not bad. It's a dry heat. It's different than the humidity." And we know the Olympic trials was in Orlando, and humidity it was in the 70s that day because I'm living 35 minutes out, but it was still humid. Does the humidity affect you after coming from Flagstaff? Is it a big difference?
Yeah, people ask all the time what's harder, altitude or humidity, and I think humidity is like harder to train in because
Definitely.
at altitude at least I can just like slow down a little bit. If you slow down when you're in humidity, you're just out there longer, so
Yeah.
you're just suffering more, longer. So yeah, I would say that yeah, humidity I think is tougher to train in.
And being in Flagstaff, we know you have a track and a road background and doing marathons, but do you get to venture out on the trails and explore the trail system they have there through the city?
We run on like dirt roads quite a bit.
Hmm.
I wouldn't know if I'd call them trails. I actually the place I moved into, there's trails like basically straight across the street from my house. And like the first day I was in the house, I was like, I just have an easy 8 mile run. I'll just go hit the trails. It'll be perfect. I just climbed for 4 miles basically, and I was like, oh man, maybe I should stick to the roads for a little bit longer because yeah, I was pretty sore after that one. So I don't do a ton of trail stuff. Uh, but we do run on like I don't know, like a soft surfaces or dirt roads, gravel roads quite a bit.
Do you ever see yourself entertaining an ultra marathon?
Too soon to say.
Too
I don't know.
soon.
I
Still a
would
lot of
think
life
I would
left in those
appreciate like
marathon legs.
yeah, I think I would appreciate like the something like the Tunnel Hill,
Yep.
something like that. Like, but I don't know if I'd ever be a good. I've just never been good at single track. I don't know if I'm
Okay.
just like not coordinated enough, but yeah, I never really enjoy single track
Okay.
very much. I enjoy going down, but not up usually.
Okay. Understandable. Understandable. So Jacob, you mentioned on another episode of another podcast that when you were finishing up your school, you were a business and finance. You got a dual degrees from the University of Kentucky. When did the coaching come into your your field of vision, and when did that start to think that that was something more you wanted to lean into?
So the coaching kind of just fell in my lap almost. I didn't set out with any intentions to have a coaching company or anything like that. when COVID hit, I was in Boston. Everything was Olympic trials got canceled that year. Nothing was going on. So like me and my roommates were I lived with 3 other runners in a 4-person apartment in Boston, Massachusetts at the time. And yeah, we would just go run in the morning and then just hang out and watch music videos on YouTube the rest of the day. Very much a bachelor pad setup for us. But then a guy from like a kid that was a sophomore in Louisville, Kentucky, sent me a DM on Instagram and was like, "Hey, my season's canceled. I want to like still train where you can't have practice or anything like that. Can you send me some workouts to do?" And at first I tried to actually pawn him off on the guy that coached me in high school. And then his name is Brian Lilly. And he was like, "You should do it. Like, you don't got anything better to do right now. Like, just to give you like, an outlet at least." So I sent him a couple workouts on Instagram DM, kind of thought that would be the end of it. And then a week later, he's like, "Here's how it went. What should I do next?" And we kind of went back and forth like that for a little bit. And then eventually he was like, "Oh, like, will you coach me?" And he went on to be a state champion in Kentucky and coaching for his last 2 years of high school. And now he actually runs in college. And basically once I started coaching him, someone else reached out. And then I was like, okay, once I had 3 or 4 people I was working with, I was like, I do enjoy this. So I, publicized that I was doing it. And then it basically just snowballed. Yeah. From those 3 or 4 people to now we're working with people in at least 35 different states, kind of all over the place. And I brought on one of my best friends, Thomas Cave, who went into coaching basically right after his college career as well. And yeah, 2 of us kind of do it full time.
Now, when you're working with because I'm assuming you have a wide variety of age groups that you're working with, but I'm sure there, as you mentioned, you started with the high school kids, and I'm sure there are, based on your track record and your resume, that there are probably a lot of high school kids that want to work with you, and that's an ever evolving thing with high school athletes and or parents working outside of their high school coaches and that sort of stuff. How do you navigate those waters? Are you strictly just working with the kids and their parents? Are you having any communication with the high school coaches? Is that a friendly relationship, or have you had to have some difficult conversations maybe with some people?
Yeah. So basically the way it works with us is like, we're not like working with the kids who are usually on like really good established teams that have a coach that are like into it. Kind of like I would say like our bread and butter is like, the kid that runs 16 minutes for a 5K, everybody else, there's 3 or 4 other kids on their team that run 20 minutes. And it's a social studies teacher that ran a couple 5Ks as the cross country coach because they couldn't find anybody. And, this kid wants to go run in college and is looking for like a next thing to do in training besides, whatever they're
400
doing. Yeah. So that's kind of like usually the athletes that, we're not working with, teams that are going to NXN and stuff like that. There are some school coaches that like reach out to us and we kind of help them like facilitate their program as far as like planning out their workouts and stuff like that. And then I think it's best if like everybody is involved. So we do have several situations where the school coaches totally on board and yeah, they kind of like give us feedback of what they're seeing at the workouts because obviously we're not there in person. So I think those setups are typically work the best. But yeah, there's definitely kids that have come to us and like, "Hey, I want to do this training." And, the first thing is like, "All right, well, you got to go talk to your school coach." And the school coach said no. And I'm like, "All right, well, it is what it is." Like, I mean, we have kids that work with us just, they work with us for like 3 months in the summer, 3 months in the winter when they're, not practicing and, they want to take that time to get better. So we definitely have like off-season athletes as well.
And are you using a platform? I use the VDOT platform with my athletes to upload their training and stuff. Do you have something that you're working with like that? Or are you using spreadsheets and Google Docs? How's it all working for you?
So yeah, I actually have used some of those platforms like Final Surge and stuff in the past, but honestly, I found I work the best in Google Sheets and Excel. So yeah, we do everything through there, and it maybe is a little bit more manual work as far as like typing in, what splits and typing in what they actually run and stuff like that, because we want to track that over time. But yeah, I've just found I can work a lot better. And I like it because everybody can have the Sheets app on their phone. It's a live document. I don't have to go in and click 5 buttons just to edit something. I can just pull it and type it in. it's good to go.
So you must have a lot of open tabs on training days when you're writing workouts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure we basically use the same calculators that those
Sure.
VDOT and stuff use. So I usually have that on one screen, a training plan here, and my laptop with messages over here, and I'm going across all three at the same time.
Fully in the matrix.
Yeah.
Jacob, you mentioned the coaching kind of fell in your lap during COVID. So about 4 years ago, and you've grown so much, you've had to hire another coach. So I would think that you have a pretty good body of work as far as experimenting with things. Do you look back on those early days and like shake your head a little bit at some of the workouts you were giving people, or has it just been a little tweaks in the growth as the 4 years has gone?
Yeah, I think well, like no two athletes are the same. So like when I go to lay out training, honestly, a lot of the principles I have then, 4 years ago, are pretty similar to the ones I have now. I've kind of evolved certain things, but a lot of it is kind of built off what has worked in the past and stuff that being in Flagstaff, I have access. I get to see all kinds of different training from, yeah, ultra people to really good marathoners to, just on my team at Dark Sky, like I think we have four guys who run between 347 and 352 in the mile. So I can say like, oh, like here's what these guys are doing during, their whole base phase. Here's what they're doing when they're like sharpening up like pre-competition stuff. Here's what they're doing, in season between championship races. So I just get access to see a lot of this stuff like firsthand. And then obviously, a 440 high school kid isn't doing the same kind of work that a 347 guy is. But the principles of that training can kind of be similar. It's kind of like just the specifics of it that change, season to season, or depending where we're at, the emphasis of training changes. But I think like the core principles of it pretty much stay the same no matter what, we're doing. I kind of have like three pillars, I guess, of how I look at training. And like number one is like consistency. So we always have to be super consistent. Number one thing is staying consistent, is staying healthy. If you keep a high school kid healthy for 4 years, they're going to be 2 seasons ahead of probably the average kid. Number two is like workouts. So like hitting our goal paces, not going too slow or too fast, kind of being right in that window, keeping our recovery ratios on. That's like super, super important. I'd rather kids slow down the goal paces and keep the recovery ratios like correct. And then the third part is volume. It's like I have high schoolers running anywhere from 25 miles a week to 70 miles a week. And it's not like, oh, all junior boys need to run 60 miles a week. I have people kind of all over that spectrum, and they have to check boxes. One, have you been healthy and consistent for a while? Two, all your workouts going well. We're not having, big issues with not being able to hit workout splits. Then, okay, we can push the volume up a little bit. And that line for everybody is a little bit different.
All right. And being out at Dark Sky and having a business where you have a lot of clients, how do you manage that? How do you manage being a professional runner and having a business?
It just gets tough at times for sure. So what I usually like to build the training like a cycle out. So like 3 or 4, I call it training cycle, like 3 to 4 weeks. So I usually kind of build that whole cycle. And then the next, 2 or 3 weeks, I'm still like talking to athletes almost every day. I'm tweaking stuff if anything comes up. But I kind of look at it as, if I look at a month of my time, like there's going to be 1 week where I'm like, yeah, I'm working a full-time job, sitting at my laptop, writing training schedules all day. And then I'm going to have 3 weeks of, I'm still putting, probably 2 hours on average, 2 or 3 hours into stuff daily. But, I can do that in between runs and stuff like that. My training is still 100% my main priority. So if there's ever, a sacrifice or something needs to be made, that's why I have help with Thomas. And we actually last week just hired, the former Bellarmine University coach. So we brought in a third coach, just to make sure like everybody has a main contact. Everybody has getting enough attention paid to their plans. And, that's something we don't want to sacrifice at all.
And when you work with
Sometimes I'll come home from a workout and I'm like, yeah, I want to just like go take a nap like the rest of my teammates, but get on and, answer 27 text messages and update 5 or 6 training plans that before I go out for my double. So yeah, that part of it gets a little tough sometimes, but I think for me being busy is good.
Have you ever fallen asleep at your computer?
I've taken some like nap breaks, but I don't think I haven't like fallen asleep on the keyboard, at least not yet.
And when you're building out the training plans, is it just the run training specifically? Are you giving them, say, warm ups, cool downs, maybe some plyometric work or some core training or some strength and conditioning stuff as well? Is that included?
Yeah, so we actually use the Jay Johnson Sam's routines.
Yep.
Those of stuff that I look at, like what I did in high school, what I did in college, what I see a lot of professional people doing now, and almost all the ancillary movements that we do, like in the weight room and stuff, are in that Sam's routine, and they've stayed the same for me for years. From high school to my college strength coaches were having me do 90% of the same stuff. The pro strength coaches were having me do 90% of that same stuff. I'm like, well, it must be pretty good stuff if it's at every level and working for really high level athletes. So it's a very simple plan. Strength and conditioning isn't my background, and also especially with working with high schoolers, I don't want to send a high schooler across the country into the weight room to do lifts that
Right.
I'm not there to watch. So yeah, I prescribed that the Jay Johnson routines, and we send them the videos and the PDFs for that. And it's simple because they can do it in the parking lot after their long run at the park. They can do it at the football field after a track workout. They can do it in their bedroom before they go to bed. Like, you don't need full weight room equipment or anything. And they've said that almost 90% of running injuries come from some type of deficiency in the hips or some issue in the like pelvic girdle, or their hamstrings to low abs kind of. And that routine like really focuses on that, and it kind of goes back to like our number one principle of training is consistency and staying healthy. So if we make sure all the hamstrings, quads, hip flexors, glutes, TFL, low back, low core is all strong and mobile, then that's going to take care of a lot of our issues.
Right on. Well, that's reassuring to hear that because I use Jay's video and I put them in with, with my client stuff. I had the building a better runner stuff that he did with Mike Smith when he was at Kansas State, and I put that in with all the stuff that my athletes do, whether it's on the front end or the back end or both. And I think it's great because you can just watch the video, follow along, and again, some of it's stuff you can do in the parking lot, or some of the core stuff you can just plop the video up and roll out your yoga mat and just follow along on YouTube or whatever. And yeah, he's amazing. He does a lot of great work, and I've been a fan of his for probably since when Running with the Buffaloes came out.
Yeah.
Jacob, so you mentioned that your training is number one and that you have a lot of good guys to train with. Talk a little bit about the culture at Dark Sky, what got you to settle in Flagstaff, and why you stayed there.
Yeah, so coming out of college in 2018, I went to Boston Athletic Association, ran for Adidas for 3 years, I guess like closer to 2.5 years. Uh, I enjoyed my time in Boston, but I really wanted to move to the marathon eventually. And then COVID was kind of honestly the final straw where I was like, I got to get out of the big city. I want to go run on some dirt roads and not see all these people. Yeah, I loved Boston basically until COVID hit, and then I very quickly didn't like Boston anymore. So yeah, I just packed up my CRV. I actually left my contract and moved to Flagstaff without a sponsor. Only knew a couple people in Flagstaff. I was there for like 3 days, and went to like a big group long run. There's 25 pros there, and I started talking to this agent. His name's Stephen Haas, who's now my coach and agent. And he's like, oh, like as long as you're here for training camp, like you're welcome to come out to our long runs and stuff. And I was like, oh, I actually moved here, like packed up everything I own, and I'm subletting an apartment. I have 3 months to like find a more permanent spot. And he's like, oh, well, great. So I started kind of just training with them. And that's when I ran sub 28 minutes in the 10K, beat Galen Rupp in a 10K, went to the Olympic trials, got 12th at Chicago Marathon in my debut marathon. And then right after that, got picked up by Under Armour and joined Dark Sky team. And yeah, the team is primarily right now track based, but we do have like Sharon Luchetti, who's won the New York City Marathon. We have Wayne Colati, who just broke the American record in the half marathon. So there's really high level athletes, kind of all the way from 1500 to the marathon. I would say most of the guys are kind of 1500 5K focused right now. But we do have good marathoners, good 5K 10K people. kind of the whole spectrum. And we're all kind of, I think we represent 8 different countries from, the US, Canada, Kenya, Israel, Great Britain, Argentina. So we have people kind of like from all over the place. So it's pretty special, like training environment for sure.
What does your training look like as far as how many solo runs are you doing? How many times are you running with the elite guys, with all those elite runners? Is there any peacocking going on?
For the most part, we're really good about that. Everybody kind of has their pocket because we have really good 1,500 runners for Australia, really good 1,500 runners for Great Britain, 2 or 3 really good 1,500 meter runners for the US. So it's not like we're going for the same spots. So we can kind of like, if I'm in a workout group with my teammates, I might be with guys who are representing 3 or 4 different countries and 2 or 3 different events. So we actually work really well together. I don't think there's been too much of an issue with that. And with the training itself, like doing the workouts, I hop in with those guys when it kind of fits with my marathon training. But like right now, like everybody's kind of just dispersed because we have people competing at European championships, people getting ready for their own country's Olympic trials. We have the US guys are getting ready for Olympic trials in a couple weeks here in Oregon. So kind of the fall and the winter, everybody's there together. And then like spring and summer, everybody starts shooting all over the world. And then the people that make the Olympics, we usually do a training camp in St. Moritz. So like some of those guys after the Olympic trials will go to St. Moritz. Some of them will go back to Flagstaff. Some of them will go to Belgium and kind of like race the European circuit. If they don't make the team, that just kind of all depends on their own situations.
So you said you're kind of on your own right now, doing your marathon training. What's next in line for you?
Yeah, so I actually just wrapped up my season on Sunday. Raced a half in Chicago, and so I'm going to take 2 or 3 weeks kind of downtime here. I'm actually in Charlotte right now. My fiance lives in Charlotte, and helping her. There's moving boxes all around me, helping her pack up her apartment. She's moving to Flagstaff the first week of July with me, and that first week of July will be kind of my first week like back to training, and I'll start a marathon build up. I'm not sure 100% what marathon I'm going to do yet, but I'll be doing a fall marathon. And I'll probably race a time or 2 along the way. So right now I'm on day 2 of off season.
And you said that your season just ended. How'd that season go? What's your kind of overall take on the season?
Yeah, so the one weird thing I feel like with marathon training, with track guys, there's very clearly a open to the season. The end of the season is always, the World Championships or usually sometime in August, like track season ends and there's no real track races in the fall or the winter until the spring season. The marathon and road racing there's races all the time. So I actually haven't really taken a full-on break since about this time last year. I ran 2:11 in Australia the first week of July last year. Took a break after that, kind of started training in August. So I've kind of been going since last August. Overall, I guess the season went pretty well. I went to World Championships for the half marathon last October. Ran some pretty good road races. I ran the Olympic trials in Orlando, which did not go very well for me. And then this spring, I've done 3 or 4 other road races. I kind of rolled right off the trials. Did a couple other road races and kind of just picked this as a good end date. So that way I have time to take a break and then get a full marathon like build up in before the fall comes. So it's a little bit more arbitrary, I guess, for marathoners and road racers when the beginning and end of season is.
Now, when you say you're taking 3 weeks down, or will there be no running involved over the course of 3 weeks, or have you already gone out for a run?
I haven't gone for a run. Probably will tomorrow. So
Okay.
Usually my rule of thumb is I try to run every third day to every other day for 2 or 3 weeks. And then by that third week, I'll probably be running every day, but no real workouts, I guess. And then, usually back end of week 3 or definitely by week 4, I'm kind of full swing back into it.
We talking like 100-mile week or?
Well, the first week of real training?
Well, how
It'll probably
quickly?
be 90 something at least, yeah.
90, dang.
So I feel like the only reason I've been good is because I don't really get hurt. Knock on wood. I haven't had a stress injury, and I've been running since I was in, fourth grade. I've never had a stress fracture or anything like that. I've had, stuff come up over time, but nothing super serious. So I've never had to take a break that wasn't like a planned break, I guess. So yeah, I can usually jump back into training very quickly, which I think is being durable is almost like a skill or a talent in itself.
Yeah, being back in Charlotte in June, are you missing the summers in the South right now or what?
It's I really, really enjoy Charlotte. It's a great, I spent, a decent amount of time here over the last 2 years, just when I was going back and forth before when Emily and I were just dating. It's a tough place to train in the summer, but great place to hang out and live. There's, great restaurants and bars, and there's concerts every weekend and sports teams and always something going on. But yeah, as far as training, it gets a little tough in the summer here for sure.
And diving back into the Under Armour topic, you said you were with Adidas, and I believe Nike, Kentucky was a Nike school. Um, how have you taken to the Under Armour equipment? Do you have a favorite trainer? What are you racing in? Are those types of shoes that you use, are they available to the public? And is that something that myself as a runner can purchase?
Yeah, so I've been with Under Armour now for over a year and a half, and the shoes are constantly evolving in a good, very good way. So basically the super shoe rush, I think Under Armour got off to a slow start. And that was the year when I was in Flagstaff where I wasn't sponsored, so I wore, different shoes. But then once I got picked up, they basically, we've had a new prototype coming out almost monthly for a year and a half now. And it's been pretty great. So like the shoes that I race in will be out next year. They're kind of like a prototype or developmental shoe right now. But the version of them that's available on the website is basically a prototype that we had about this time last year, the Flow Velocity Elite. And basically they just keep building upon that. And it's really cool because like when I was with Adidas, like I just kind of got whatever showed up in the box a couple times a year, like I got a couple big boxes showed up at the door a couple of times a year, and that's like what you get. And there's no feedback. But Under Armour's really great because the shoe engineers come to Flagstaff. They usually come to Flagstaff twice a year. They're doing one-on-one meetings with us. We're going through, 8 or 10 different shoes. And then a month later, we have new prototypes that are built up off of what we said when we were sitting with these guys at a coffee shop, a couple weeks ago. And there's a lot of mailing the shoes back and forth because they want to see, the wear patterns. They want to see how the foam's condensing and breaking down over time. So it is really cool to have and I'm lucky that I'm a 9.5, so it happens to be the test size for Under Armour. So like I get almost all the prototypes and the cool new stuff, and I get to be on a lot of shoe meetings because of that. And yeah, that's something that I really enjoy.
And when you're sitting in that coffee shop in Flagstaff and you think back to, when you started running as a fourth grader, 420 freshman or All-American at Kentucky, are you pinching yourself that you're living the dream as so many high school and college runners want to do?
Yeah, so honestly it was and wasn't my dream, I guess, for a long time. But it is really cool to be in that position now. So like when I was in college, I guess going through high school is always like, oh, the next thing is the state meet. The next thing is to qualify for nationals. The next thing is to get recruited to go to college. And you get to college and it's like, well, the first thing is to score at the conference meet. And then you want to win the conference meet. And then you want to go to nationals. And then you want to score at nationals. And then it's like, okay, well, what's next? And basically my senior year at Kentucky, that cross country season was actually the worst. I placed worse at regionals as a senior than I did as a freshman. And I think that was a big wake up call where I was starting to interview for interview at PNC, interview at JP Morgan. I was going to go into banking, but I was starting to get kind of drawn in two very different directions cause I was still training very hard. My training was great, but racing, it just wasn't there mentally. And basically after I failed to qualify for NCAA cross country my senior year, which is the first time I missed it in all of college. And sat down with my coach after that, and he's like, look, if you just want to finish out the year and you want to go work at a bank, like that's cool. I get it. Like no big deal. But if you are still thinking about trying to run after college, like something's got to change. So I canceled the interview I had the next week, took a short break, and then like that winter I went home for Christmas for like a day just because I lived 75 minutes down the road, but I stayed there at UK so I could use the facilities, go to the track, hit the indoor track, hit the weight room, do all that stuff. And then that indoor season had the best indoor season I had all of college, and that kind of opened up the doors for me to run after school. So yeah, I guess it wasn't always I wasn't always 100% sure. I was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out if that was going to be my dream. And then yeah, after that bad race and having that conversation with my coach afterwards, uh, it really I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And once my focus changed, everything changed a little bit.
You talk about canceling that job interview. How'd your parents take to that?
My parents are neither one of them are runners. My mom is still the kind where I could run a world record or I could run the worst race ever, and she'll text me afterwards and be like, was that good? Like, they show up, they're very supportive. They're definitely not running nerds or into it by any means. My dad was like, just don't ever call and ask us for money. He's like, you can run pro, or he's like, to him, it wasn't even a real thing. He's like, you can run pro as long as you don't ever call and ask for money. So I've never called and asked for money, and doing pretty well. And yeah, so they're very supportive of it now. I would say my dad was probably before the coaching business, especially. My dad was like very skeptical of what it could be, just because he's like, why would shoe companies pay you to run for Adidas like out of college? That doesn't make any sense. Which I guess if you think about it that way, maybe it doesn't. But he's like, you're not selling. People aren't buying that many Adidas shoes because you run for Adidas. And at the end of the day, that's probably true. But yeah, it's evolved into something that I can do pretty well at, both financially and really enjoy it. And yeah, it's kind of where we're at now.
Well, congratulations, because Rich and I, growing up, we wanted to be professional athletes of some sort. So I envy you for the opportunities you got and taking full advantage of them. At the beginning of the podcast, we brought up the word that's going around, double threshold, and that's what kind of got you on our radar. I'm kind of curious to your experience with it, if you still use it in your training and with your athletes. Is it as good as everyone says, or is it overhyped?
I think like any other type of training, it's a tool that can be used rightly or wrongly. And I think if you use it correctly, it can have great benefit. With the high schoolers, I don't use it just because like usually I don't even have them run twice a day because they're in class for 7 hours, where pros, we can go run in the morning, go hang out for several hours, take a nap or whatever, and then come back in the afternoon and do another session because that's our job. But yeah, I definitely still use it personally, myself, my team, everybody from our 1,500 runners up to our marathoners. I would say use it in training.
And are you doing lactate testing and taking measurements like that? And if so, how often are you doing that when you're in your peak phase of training?
Yeah, so usually we'll try to test the lactates a time or two, like different like workouts. But then once we kind of know where we're at, or like what our numbers like say, we can usually you can do it off of pace or off of like perceived effort.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know your body really well and you know the effort that it's supposed to be at, and you know what your heart rate was at 2 millimoles and your heart rate at 4 millimoles, then you should be able to pretty much nail those paces without getting tested super often. So yeah, usually we'll test 2 or 3 workouts, maybe every other week or something at the beginning, and then once we kind of like nail down sometimes we'll do a check-in. Like I did the last big one I did before the Olympic trials. I did like testing and everything pretty much lined up with what we thought it should line up with. But I think it's just like kind of a testament to knowing your body and doing it for a long time. You can kind of like perceive that effort really, really well.
And do you have a bread and butter workout that you do that that you're in peak condition and fit and ready to rock and roll?
Yeah,
that you
usually
can share with us?
yeah, I mean, usually if we're talking about double T, like usually I'll do 2Ks in the morning, 2K reps, and I'll come back and either do K repeats or 400 repeats in the evening. And yeah, if I'm at altitude and yeah, running 455-ish pace usually. So that's kind of like 610 for 2Ks and like 305 down to three or a little bit over three flat, probably like 302, 303 average for 8x K in the afternoon. And if I recover super well, I can always kind of tell the next day because if I recover super well off of it and I can kind of tell I've done everything correctly.
Okay, right on. Thank you. Yeah, Jacob, we want to be super respectful of your time. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this. Growing up, as Jimmy said, we always wanted to be professional athletes, and there was always 1 or 2 weeks in the summertime that kind of gave me that vibe and that feeling, and that was summer cross country camp. And then I also got to be a counselor when I was in college, and then also as a high school coach, got to attend and be a part of the camps as a coach as well. Can you close it out here, at least from my end, with a question? Talk about the Bluegrass Running Camp.
Yeah. So Bluegrass Running Camp came about basically another coach had called me and we started talking about he had a good athlete and he wanted to talk about training. We talked about training for an hour on the phone, and at the end of it, he's like, "Man, you should have a camp, like teach this stuff and get it out there." And I was like, "Yeah, I would love to do a camp, but this is like the month before I moved to Flagstaff, and I was like, I'm moving to Arizona. I don't know how to put on a camp. I don't know how to get a facility. I don't like the logistics of it. I was like, I can coach, but I don't know how to put on a camp." He's like, "Oh, we'll figure it out." So I was like, "All right, well, talk to Thomas, who was helping me with Thompson Training, and yeah, the three of us started Bluegrass Running Camp, and it really started because there's no camps in Kentucky, where all three of us were from, and so if you wanted to go to a high school cross country camp, you had to go to Tennessee, Smoky Mountains, or you had to go to North Carolina. So you're going several hours away. All the camps now are $1,000, $1,200. So we're like, all right, we want to do something in the middle of Kentucky where kids that don't have like can't afford to go to a big running camp out of state, or parents can't drive them 6 hours to camp and 6 hours back. We want it to be accessible to them. So yeah, we started Bluegrass Running Camp. We had about 130 kids the first year, and now we have between like 250 and 300 kids a year. And we get kids from out of state, but it is like predominantly, I would say probably 95% Kentucky kids. And that's really cool because now we see all these kids, they see each other at camp, and then they see each other at the big cross country meets, and they're all warming up and cooling down together and talking and wearing their Bluegrass Running Camp backpacks. And yeah, so the evolution of it has been awesome. And then the counselors we bring in are great. We hire 30 collegiate runners to come in. And as the high schoolers, like I was like, this is the most valuable part of camp to the high schoolers should be talking to these college kids every single day, all day, and annoying the heck out of them with questions and stuff like that because they were you 3 years ago. So yeah, we feel like we've put a lot of really good pieces together for that camp, and Under Armour helps sponsor it, which is great. Nice. And yeah, I love camp. It's a lot of work for everybody's like, oh, it's just 1 week, can't be that much work. It's a lot of prep work for 1 week, and then yeah, it's a blast. I'm exhausted every time we leave, but yeah, I love camp.
So when is that? Where is that?
We do it at Campbellsville University. We run out their dorms and kind of run it from their campus. And it's July 17th to July 21st. So it goes Wednesday to Sunday, 5-day camp. It's pretty much, it's all high schoolers, co-ed overnight camp. So yeah, it's a fun time.
Awesome. And is there a specific website that we can direct people to for that?
Oh yeah. So it's just bluegrassrunningcamp.com. Yeah, there's actually, I think we have about 35 spots left for the summer. So yeah, registration's open until July 1st. Yeah.
Right on. Well, if you need another body, I'm a somewhat able-bodied 48-year-old ultra marathoner that could probably keep up with some of the slower groups and have a pretty extensive background in movement and strength and conditioning too. I'd be happy to volunteer.
All right. Are you in Kentucky now, or are you down in
I'm
Florida?
actually in South Carolina. I'm in the
Oh,
upper
South Carolina.
state of South Carolina near I was near Clemson, now I'm in Greenville near Furman.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Jacob, thank you for doing the camp because, like you said, with the kids getting to talk to the college kids, both on the wrestling and on the running side of things, I still take a lot of that sage wisdom I got from summer camp. So, thank you for doing that. You're doing a service, even if you don't see it, you are. I have one last thing before we get in the final four. You have the keto IQ on your Instagram. I heard you talk
Ketone.
about it. Ketone IQ. Thank you, Rich. On your Instagram, heard you talking about it. Are you keto athlete, fat adapted, low carb?
I'm not. I would say like diet wise, I'm like very probably one place I could really improve, uh, to be honest. But I do use the ketone IQs during pretty much I usually take them before every single workout. So usually I'm taking it 2 or 3 days a week for my harder workout days, my long run day. In the marathon, I'll mix it into my marathon bottles with Morton to take it like mid race as well. And I find it really helps almost mentally more than physically. Um, and yeah, I've been using it for a little bit over a year now, and it's something that yeah, I started off. They just like sent it to me to try, and then I was like, oh, this stuff actually really works. And my brother is does photo and video stuff, so he was like working with them on uh like media projects, like content stuff, as a contractor. And then they sent him a bunch of it, and that's where like I tried it, and I sent them an email, and they sent me some more to like use it more regularly. And then I was like, yeah, I think this stuff actually works, and I've actually yeah used it in my marathon bottles and stuff, and yeah, take it several times a week.
Are you putting anything in that Morton bottle to cut the flavor of that? Because they're
No,
not the best tasting
it tastes
things.
horrible. Yeah, it does not taste good. Although I've seen online that people said the like the little Mio flavor shots that people put in their water. I haven't tried it yet, but I want to try that because people say they put a little dash of that into the ketone bottle before they shoot it, and it
Okay.
helps a lot. So
Interesting.
I don't know if I might give it a shot. But yeah, the taste is pretty rough.
Yeah, I pretty much just throw it,
Yeah,
just
same.
one swig, get it down, and get it over with. 'Cause I don't know if I'd want to be sipping on that over an extended period of time with my calories.
Jacob, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed this conversation and your insights. Now we're going to get into the final four.
All right.
First one I got for you. Are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
Just black coffee, grind the beans, pour over, V60 pour over every morning. Got the gooseneck kettle, all the gadgets. But yeah, just black coffee for me. If I'm at a coffee shop, I'll do cortado is usually my go-to drink.
Nice.
Do you have a roast? Sorry, Rich. Do you have a roasted choice? Dark roast, light roast?
Usually like light to medium roast. Yeah. I have a coffee subscription to Pavement Coffee, and it was actually I started doing it when I lived in Boston, and they shipped to Arizona, so I've left it the same.
Nice. Are you getting as crazy as weighing your beans before you grind them?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I weigh it, grind it, have the gooseneck at 210, and then yeah, do the whole pour over shebang every morning.
Nice, nice. And now, speaking of the coffee company in Boston, you said, when the world went crazy in 2020, that Boston got a little bit claustrophobic for you and you had to get out of there. That was kind of the same sentiment for Jimmy and I. We were living in Denver when all of that started to happen, and Jimmy was in school, so he had to stick around a little bit longer. But I eventually found a way to make my way down here to South Carolina. So we definitely can resonate with that feeling as well, being in a city.
Yeah, yeah. Boston was great when I was 23, 24, and just running. But
Yeah.
yeah, as soon as COVID hit, I was like, man, I think I need to get out of this place.
Yep, I feel you. Jacob, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Jacob Thompson?
I go through phases of meditation. So when I'm training for a marathon, I try to meditate every morning. Haven't been doing it for probably yeah, since before Orlando. Something I would like to do daily, but as soon as I get out of a big marathon block, everything kind of all the other stuff kind of usually fades out a little bit. But that's something when I'm in heavy training that I guess I would say it was like ritualistic for me.
Are you using an app, or are you just getting on the cushion and staring at the wall or closing your eyes?
So I've used Headspace before, and then I had some like guided stuff that I worked with sports performance guy, and he had like some voice recordings that he would like send that is really similar to stuff that would be like on the Headspace app.
Have you found that to be beneficial with the running? Because I know when I started meditating for other reasons, and then in a race, I kind of the light bulbs went off and things clicked for me, and now it's been a huge game changer for especially for the endurance, like the ultra stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's one of those things that if you, I mean, just like anything running or weightlifting, if you do it once or twice, it's not going to make a difference at
Mm.
all. But when you like get into the habit of you're doing it for weeks on end every single day, I think that's when it like really starts to click for me. It's not like I sit down and do it once and I feel like a huge benefit, but if I can do it for 30 or 40 days in a row, that's when, yeah, like everything seems much more clear.
Yeah.
Jacob, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Uh, I am reading. I just started reading Meditations over here in the back
Nice.
next to me. And then listening to, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I kind of like hop around though. I wouldn't say there's one podcast like I always listen to. It's usually depend on who the guest is. Um, so I listen to The Running Effect. Um, has like some really good episodes. To listen to that one from time to time. Um, and then like music wise, like country music. I listen to a lot of. I've been on a Red Clay Strays kick lately. Listened to a lot of like Chris Stapleton, uh, Luke Combs. Yeah, pretty nothing like super groundbreaking, I guess, on the music side. But yeah, I do like to listen to a lot of music.
Being from bluegrass state, do you get down with some bluegrass music?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have any like favorite
Mhm.
bluegrass artist or anything, but I do like listening to bluegrass music.
Right on.
There's a
Yeah.
big bluegrass festival actually in called Picking in the Pines in Flagstaff every summer. So I try to get around and hang out there a little bit if I can.
Right on. Definitely something that's grown on me. I wasn't necessarily as receptive to it while we were living in Colorado, but maybe just being down here in the South, it's definitely grown on me a lot, and I can get down with it. Do you ever run with music? Do you train with music at all ever?
When I'm run by myself, I used to be like very anti no music
Yeah.
running, but now, running by myself or when I'm like traveling and stuff like that, I'll throw the AirPods in. It got a lot easier that the Garmin I use now like stores music on it.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
that I feel like made it a lot more convenient.
Sure.
I wouldn't like, take my phone in my pocket with me or something just to listen to music though. But I just kind of have I have like a classic rock shuffled playlist, a country music shuffled playlist, and I have like my pre-race playlist that I probably made as like a freshman in college. It's pretty much all, still the same. And so I'll
Nice.
just shuffle through one of those three while I'm out running.
All right. Jacob, last one we have for you. Do you have a guilty pleasure or guilty pleasures?
Yeah, I would say guilty pleasures.
Could be
Uh,
food, maybe you enjoy a craft beer or a good
I
whiskey.
I like eating, I like drinking. I would say, I don't know if, yeah, I guess both of those would be. I eat a lot of, I like binge eat drunk food, junk food. And I do, yeah, I mean, I enjoy going sitting at a brewery and brewery hopping. I'm not a whiskey, bourbon, not a hard liquor guy. Uh, but yeah, I like to drink beer and I definitely like to eat, my fair share of junk food, I would say.
Have you gotten yourself into some green chilies down in Flagstaff yet?
I haven't.
No. Okay. It's like southern Colorado, New Mexico, northern Arizona. Arizona green chili is a staple.
Hmm.
Um,
No, I haven't had it.
people like it on their enchiladas. Um, are you a pale ale, IPA, lager? What's your go-to when you go to a
Mm,
brewery? You mix it up.
I like either just like light beers or IPAs. I would say those. I don't do any like stout, dark. amber type stuff. So yeah, it's usually either like New England. I got into like all the hazy
Sure.
IPAs. But then yeah, other than that, it's just yeah, Pilsners, lagers.
Right on. Awesome. Jacob, we missed it at the beginning of the podcast, but while we got you, give you the floor anywhere and everywhere you want the people to find you, what you got going on from a running perspective, from a coaching perspective, from the camps. The floor is yours. Give them all the socials anywhere you want them to connect with you.
Yeah, you can find me. Thompson Training is on Instagram, Facebook, and our website. Yeah, just run Thompson Training. And then Bluegrass Running Camp, like we said, is Instagram and website, just Bluegrass Running Camp. And then you can find myself at just Jacob Thompson on Instagram and Strava. I'm a big Strava guy.
Okay. All right. I'll add you for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Jacob, yeah, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your time. I look forward to following you and cheering for you in races ahead. Thank you so much.
All right. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Enjoy your time in Charlotte and good luck when you get back to Flagstaff and get back to training. We're looking forward
Thank you.
to it.
I appreciate it.